Hello, everyone, and welcome to Silent No More radio show and podcast with Dr. Monica. I'm Dr. Monica, your host, and I'm so excited that you decided to be with us today. So, our topic is one that is good for the time that we're living in, Black History Month. Although we should celebrate our culture every day of the year, 365 days a year, not just the shortest month of the year. Let's be clear. But I have a wonderful guest with us today, and he's going to introduce himself. And this is the thing. You all have been accustomed to him, or you've grown accustomed to him because he's been on plenty of my podcasts. Okay. So when you see him and we're like, oh, yeah, he's back. Guess who? Guess who's back again? No, not funny. Not funny. Well, anyway, the topic this week is speak up and empower Black males. And I think it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, I was minding my own business on social media, and I noticed that our guest today, I'm not going to say who he is until he's actually on screen, or when you actually hear him, if you're tuning in on www.envisionbroadcasting.com, Silent No More, you'll be able to hear his voice. But I was on social media a couple of weeks ago, and my brother, I just said it, didn't I? Shucks. He was standing at what looked like a clinic. And it's so funny because my sons and I, because I am a boy mom, and I'm still going to tell you the topic in just a second, but I'm a boy mom, and I got a text in the group chat that said, did Uncle such and such get sworn in to get a COVID vaccine? Ha ha ha, because my kids are so crazy. I was like, no, I don't know what's going on because we talk so frequently. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that he wasn't being sworn in to get a COVID vaccine. It doesn't work that way, but they're just being silly. But the topic for today is speak up and empower Black males. Speak up and empower Black males. This topic is very important to me because I am a boy mom, as I stated before, but also because I am the principal of an Afrocentric school in Kentucky. This Afrocentric school is all males. So we cater to Black and brown boys, but all boys are welcome. But our guest today was just sworn in to do some similar work at the governmental level. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce him to the audience. Yes, my brother. Guess who? Guess who's back again? My brother is here to talk about why he was sworn in and what he's now doing. He's going to connect that to a nonprofit that he works so diligently with in the state of Indiana, and all the things. So I'm going to pass the torch over to Jeremi Taylor so he can tell you all about the wonderful work that he's doing in Indiana. Jeremi.
Let me first just say I'm excited to be here again with you. And I found it comical in the introduction when you said you were not going to say who I was, but then you said, my bruh. Oh, my goodness. So I thought that did not last long at all.
My big mouth.
But it is so good to be here with you. It's good to be in your presence because you are doing great and amazing things. I'm just so humbled by the fact that you would ask me to be on your podcast, because looking at some of the things God has done in your life is truly amazing, especially when you grow in the household with someone and you don't expect them to grow and be that great. I have a snippet of what the disciples must have felt like, the brothers of Jesus, when they're like, man, this man's just nobody. And then all of a sudden it just blows up. And you've been in the presence of greatness your whole life, yet you didn't even know it was possible.
Don't shout me.
Thankful for you, your voice, and all you're doing to impact the lives of Black men, because you're a woman who has raised Black sons in this climate. And now you're over a whole school where you're now sunning other individuals just like you did yours. So God used that as a springboard for what you're doing even right now.
Thank you. Let me interject real quick. It's so funny.
Go ahead.
It's taken, this year has been trying in the fact that I've had to build new systems for instruction, for behavior, for academics, for all, even sports, for everything. We're rebuilding everything. And you know me, I'm out with the people. I'm high-fiving, fist bumping, taking kids home, going to events all the time. Yeah. And so now that the systems are finally starting to gain traction, they're becoming embedded and robust. they're starting to learn your sister a little bit. So today,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I got off the intercom and I said, "Excuse me, pardon the interruption." Now, granted, this was after school was over. But I said, now that I've been able to get to know you, and you, I appreciate all of you. And I have a song to sing for each of you.
Oh.
And they said, "Oh, Lord, what's Dr. Hunter going to do? What's she going to do now?" I said, no. Everybody relax. Everybody just take a deep breath. And I sang, "How could I live without you? I want to." They're like, but it was so funny because they were standing there like, what's happening here? And they were quiet. And they're like, "Well, is she done?" And then I said, "I want each of you to learn the Black National Anthem over the weekend. We're going to have our first choir rehearsal on Monday morning during Brotherhood time. We're singing it together."
Interesting. There you go.
And I bet you
There
somebody's
you go.
going to be prepared to sing it.
I
But
know someone will, because they
I'll be
don't know
there.
that part of you. Yeah.
Give me the mic.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, go ahead, Jeremy. Tell the
So
people about what you've been doing.
I am Jeremi Taylor. I'm currently getting my master's in divinity at IWU, which is Indiana Wesleyan University. I have recently been sworn in to the Commission for the Social Status of African American Males in Evansville, Indiana. I work as the middle and high school program manager for a not-for-profit organization called Dream Center, where we follow children from cradle to career. So for me, I catch them at the middle school age and I begin to find out what their goals are, what God has placed in them, their talents, their desires. And if they have any behavior issues, we now go into the school. So I'm based at North Junior High School and North High School, which is actually where I graduated from. And so I get to
Awesome.
go in there and I get to connect with the kids in the classroom setting, in the school setting, and just get to know them. And as they open up, I can find out what their desires are, what their plans are. If they have none, we can work together to do that. And that all takes place in the school. We have RDS access, so we can look at where they're at educationally, the behavior issues. The counselors lean on me because I'm another person that can come in and connect with them. And then a lot of them identify with me because we focus on the Jacobsville area, which is another inner city area in Evansville, Indiana. So after we pull them from and get them involved into the program, they come to Dream Center, and that's where the spiritual formation comes into play. Now I'm actually be in my element of comfort, where I now can develop classroom curriculum for them that's faith-based and that is tailor-made for them to grow and know Christ.
You know, I
So
love
my desire
writing
is to
fiction.
start as disciples.
Yeah.
So I disciple them. And it's very relational, almost like how Jesus walked with the disciples. They just did life together. And as you find time, you then give them truth and then you help to educate them so they can be better school, better citizens, better students, go to school. That's what I was trying to say, because a lot of them don't want to go to school but have a desire.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing as far as the Dream Center is concerned. And then I have a church that we planted, which is Level Up Church. And we're trying to get the ball rolling because we planted during the COVID cycle. And so we were actually 2 years in, and then the Lord led us to kind of slow things up, shut the doors, spend time growing, develop, and then look at our structure and then see how we can relaunch. But this time we will relaunch, actually have something that people can come into and sit along with us, as opposed to just watching us on Facebook. Because you know how people are doing. They tune in for 5 seconds, push a little heart, and then they walk away. And I think a lot of people thought that meant you had so many views when really you may have had 3 seconds of views. So now we want to get that touch point again, trying to get people back in the groove of coming to church, because for a while you were fine sitting and watching, observing from afar. So now trying to make that transition where people are comfortable coming back and get back in the flow of that. So those are some of the things that I have going on.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you're at North Junior High and North
Yes.
High School. Is North Junior High a new school?
Yes, they actually put it out on 41. It used to be off of Stringtown Road, but they totally went in and revamped it and got a little bit further, probably 5 to 10 minutes away from McCutcheonsville. And so now the children go up 41. So it's probably about 25 minutes away from Evansville.
So is it
But
kind of
they
like
still
a
allow.
theater? Is it like a theater into North High?
Yes, North Junior High goes right into North High. Yes.
Are they on the
They're
same
connected.
campus?
And it is a campus. It looks like a college campus.
Okay. So Shameless plug. I'm also the principal of a 6 through eventually 12. Right now we're 6 through 10. Next year will be 6 through 11. And the following year it'll be 6 through 12. And we have
Mm-hmm.
a feeder system within our school as well. We're actually building our campus now. So it's been wonderful
Oh,
sitting with the
wow.
architects to look at the architectural designs, the specs, the drafts of what it could be. We just had a meeting with our staff showing them some of the pictures, and they were able to give us feedback on what they liked, what they didn't like.
Wow.
We're going to allow the students to do that in the next couple of weeks, and the parents as
That
well.
is
And
amazing.
so I'm overseeing the entire process of building our new campus in Kentucky. So I'm super duper pumped about that, and I'm happy because we're finally seeing us come into a space where we're looking
Hmm.
at the structure, the potential structure, and giving those
Mm-hmm.
the feedback, and so we can eventually approve it at our level. It'll go to our district, they'll approve it, then the state will approve it, and then hopefully we'll be able to break ground this summer. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That is really amazing. Look at the door that is open. I mean, you're overseeing architectural designs for a school. I mean,
Who would ever
that's
thunk it?
I know.
I
So
was
whenever I need assistance for something like that, I know someone that knows how to go in and make sure you're not being taken advantage of.
That's right. That's right. It's funny because when we first started, they were asking questions, and I was like, "Wait, what?" Now I'm
Hmm.
like, "Spec dot," like I
Yeah.
know I
Oh
know
yeah,
some
you
of the
know
different language.
you know the language now.
Yeah, I know some of the
Yeah.
language.
Wow,
So
that is amazing.
thank you. So Jeremy, you've been working with youth for a long time.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
caused you to go into this realm of impacting other young people?
I think. Well, I know for a fact whenever you come from a certain dynamic yourself, and then you connect back with God. I think a great scripture is all things work together for the good. And a lot of times we don't realize that that good has nothing to do with you when you're going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you get older and you mature in the faith, you move from God, why did you put me here? To now, God, I understand why you had me there. Because
Mm,
now I'm actually in a position where I'm not just academically able to break down the word, but my discernment and my understanding of that individual is based upon how I felt when you had me in that position.
yeah.
And so now you can identify with Joseph when he says, you placed me here for a time such as this so that I could save those who were now going through famine. And these young individuals who are in the school systems that I'm coming in contact with, and the young males that gravitate to me, are living in a state of natural famine. They don't have
Mm,
food, they lack clothing, they don't have lighting, they don't have washer and dryers. They don't have money for uniform. Mom is working so many jobs, so they don't have time to read, which is why they read on such a low level. They don't have time for that. They're trying to survive. And so
mhm.
when you come from a background where that was kind of your dynamic, because in our household, especially for me, um, unfortunately, my mother was not concerned about me academically. It was not until I moved in with my father to where he sat me down and literally spent time with me, teaching me how to study, how to read, how to do math, and showing me what that looks like on a consistent basis. And so I was able to come from where I did not have to where I did learn. And now I'm actually continuing to learn. And now God has divinely placed me in an environment where now I can help train these other young men and women in some cases how to do the same thing. And it's applicable because they can relate to my story. When the Bible says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and our testimony, we
Yes.
have to be willing to share our story. And that's when kids really open up to you and they share, this is where I'm at and this is how I got here. And there's oftentimes where you know in the back of your mind, you're just waiting for them to connect the dot, like you said. And once the dot is connected, then they have that aha moment. And now it's real
Mm,
to them because the light bulb comes on for them, not because I was poking, prodding, and then just pushing on them my agenda. They have to allow themselves to learn it, identify when it started, and then it's almost like they're a sponge and they'll do anything you ask them to do. And so for me, it started with the call, knowing that God allowed kids just to gravitate to me. And over the course of time, like I said, as I matured, I began to understand why I am the way I am and why I have success. Ultimately, because God had me in an incubator, preparing me for this time. Nothing of myself, just
Mhm.
really being real with God, real with myself, and then allowing God to use me in every sense of the
Yeah,
word.
yeah. One thing that stuck out about what you just said was Joseph.
Mm,
And I was thinking there's another character in the Bible, in the Old Testament, who is similar to Joseph, but has feminine energy, and that's Esther.
mm,
And I remember when I was married to a pastor years and years ago, it's almost been
mm-hmm.
9 years at this point,
Wow.
and I've been divorced. But I used to have this session with the married women.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had single, saved, and satisfied. And then we had, oh, I forgot the married group. But anyway, I used to lead a group and I called it the Esther Factor.
Okay.
There is a way to have the mindset of Esther, caress your
Mm-hmm.
situation, and then shift the atmosphere for such a time as this, in your
Mm.
household, in your community, wherever. So I love how you said that, and it just caused me to reflect on some work that I've done in the past. All right, so let's get into your mentorship. You've been a mentor for quite some time. And there's
Yes, I have.
yeah, and there's one thing to know that there is a mandate on your life, a call on your life to pour into or empower young people to be their best selves. But it's another thing to really be able to tap into who they are
Mm-hmm.
and to connect those resources, not just through you, but through other avenues, so
Yes.
they can be exposed to the greatness outside of your relationship and your
Mm-hmm.
mentorship. So, how did that begin to cultivate and grow and develop?
It cultivated and it growed because when I played basketball, it allowed me to see um, what all it takes to win. And on a basketball team, you have different cultures, you have different
Win,
ethnicities.
win, 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 win. All I do is win.
Oh yeah, I didn't know what win you were saying, WHEN or WIN.
WIN, WIN.
Yeah, so so being in that environment allowed for me to not become prejudiced, even though when I grew up, we were just coming out of civil rights movement. Martin Luther King had probably been dead 15, 20 years. So it's a lot of transitions going on. Yeah. And so we were being born on the heels of civil rights, like really just actually being established because it takes time for these things really come into effect. And so having a father who actually allowed for me to be around different people and not seeing them as a color, but as a person, allowed for me then to not have any guards up based upon where you come from or your nationality. Follow me where I'm going, because we need white people. And so, because there were Europeans and whites that were active in helping slaves become free, realize they were free, and fight for their freedom, I have always been one who has been open to everyone. And so, you do have organizations that are African American based, and then you have some that are not African American based, but maybe they are from suburbs or they're white, or it even could be Indian, Asian, you name it, because there's so many people that are out there that are really trying to fight to make sure everyone has equitable living. Um, and so for me, it began when I got connected with Indiana Wesleyan Church. And as I went through the pastoral plant process, these were a bunch of men, and many of them were white, and women, and most of them were white, but they did not put a glass ceiling over what I could do. Unfortunately, in the African American churches, there's typically a glass ceiling. They only want you to go so far. I really hate to say it, but it's true. There's no sense in lying. And
Yeah.
so, for the first time, when I got connected to this system, they literally wanted to see how far I wanted to go, and they only wanted to propel me. They only
Mhm.
wanted to support me. Yes, they want to see my plans. Yes, they want to see my vision. But then all they would say is, how can we make this better so you're successful? How can we support you? How much funding do we need to funnel your way? I'm going to call this guy over here. And what he's going to do, he's going to walk you through getting your board together. He's going to sign off so you can set up your check and your banking account for the church. And this was the first time anybody had done that for me and with me. And so as I get involved with the Dream Center and things of that nature, these are individuals who are data-based. So it's all about the data. Then they want to see the documentation. You have to enter it in. Then they want to see, okay, what is your action steps for what you're going to do for the next 3 years? And so now you're developing those systems, and then you're doing presentations. And now that you're doing presentations, you're in front of boards, you're in front of individuals who are CEOs of banks. You're in front of guys that have 15 churches that they planted all around Evansville and Henderson. And so now you're in the room with individuals that have resources that you never would have known were there because of what they do in their realm. And so that was when I was able to actually begin to experience more success that was beyond ground level, just talking with the individual and then them having to deal with me. But now I have resources and people I can pull on where there is a developmental issue for a child, but I have someone who works in academia and can get a tutor, and then they can set up something specific for that individual. And that takes the weight off me because it's just me. Mm-hmm. And so that's where those resources come into effect. And that's probably just been over the last year or so.
Right. So you're like Hamilton, you're in the room where it happens.
Yes.
The room where it happens.
Yes.
The room where it happens. I want to be in the room where it happens. So anyway,
you're building the building where it happens. You're beyond a room.
I am the room. I'm the room.
What are you talking about? We never can see ourselves. The only time we see ourselves in the mirror, we can't see what other people see in us.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's go back to something that you said, because I want our audience to understand what you mean when you say that we need white people. So one thing that, or one let me go back. One reason why I started this podcast is because, like you said, our community does not speak up. If there's any information that we have, not us, but as a collective, if there's any information that we have that will cause us and our closest relatives, our immediate family members, to rise above the status quo, we'll hoard that information for ourselves, because the system has been built for us to only have a certain number of seats in the room where it happens. And so because I have a seat in the room where it happens and you have a seat in the room where it happens, we've got to keep that information with us, because if we take that information out into our community, then they'll all have a seat in the room where it happens. And then I won't get the resources that I need to be great. But the cattle on 1,000 hills belongs to God. So if they have the resources for greatness financially, for security, for systems, for that data, for that reporting piece, all the things, as long as we speak up about those resources that we have, as long as we're silent no more, we can bring an entire people up, because there is more than enough for all of us to have, more than enough. So that is why this platform is set up the way it is. That's why we've talked about investing. That's why we've talked about buying property. We've talked about empowering one another. We've talked about setting those goals, writing the vision, making it plain, all the things, because I refuse to be in a space where I'm a crab in a bucket. And it's so funny in my position as a principal, a lot of people are intimidated by me until they get to know me. So I just talked to somebody before we got on here. And we're going to talk, I promise guys, we're going to talk about speak up and empowering Black males, or empower Black males. But right before we got on, I was talking to one of the staff members, and she said, I was so nervous because I heard from a lot of people that your stuff and you're this and you're that. She said, but then I got to know you. And I was like, oh, she's so down to earth and she's so cool and all the things. She said, and then I remember we were in your office the other day and we all got a copy of the book. And then somebody said, well, do I have to read it? She said, and you had to look like, did I assign it to you to read? She said, so I'm like, oh, she's about her business too. I said, yes. I said, we have to have balance. We have to have balance. I said, and one thing that I pride myself on as a leader is being able to tap into the leadership capabilities of others and coaching them into great positions. Like, I don't want people to just to stay at my school because they're at my school. I want them to see, oh, I want Dr. Hunter did that. I want to be a principal. Oh, honey,
Yes.
come to this meeting with me. Go here with me. I'll bake you a cake. We can crack some jokes, but you're going to learn today. You're going to learn today because I refuse to be in a position and not bring my people up. And
There you
so
go.
when you said we need white people, yes, because not all of us know how to do that. Not all of us have those resources or even know how to tap into those resources. So once we have that knowledge, we've got to be like a Jeremi Taylor and say, hey, I went here and this happened and you can too. Just because Jeremi was able to tap into it doesn't mean that you can't. So don't be that person that says, well, it's already done over there. I have to do something different. No, you can do the same thing and ask Jeremy to be your mentor, for goodness sakes. Ask him to be your coach to get you where you need to be with your organization, with your mentor program, with what you're doing in the community. Because if we all speak up, we'll all be a people that levels up. Like your church, we'll all level up.
There you go.
Right?
I love the plugs. Yeah. This is what you do.
That's right. That's what I do. All right. So back to your mentorship program. I talked to you the other day, and you were talking about the nonprofit, and you already talked about it a little bit, but I want you to really talk about like the specifics behind how you empower one of your students that are part of your program. Just walk us through what that looks like. You said from the cradle to career. So I want you to pick up or talk about a success story, where they started and where they are now. Of course, none of us will ever stop developing and growing, but how has their process progressed?
Some of it is it's the simple things. There was a young man who moved from a very dangerous city. He was in Baltimore. There are a lot of murders that are down there, and so he comes to Evansville and he begins to say that he has skills in boxing and all this stuff. And so now the kids are intimidated by him. He is very thick, very well built, kind of no nonsense. And Evansville is kind of laid back, and he's seen a lot. So coming to this area for him is a walk in the park. And so knowing all that and having that conversation with him and allowing him to not like me, to be disrespectful, and not realize everything that I actually bring to the table and how important I am, because you have to be humble. If you come in swinging the sword like I have all this authority, a child will shut down. So I began just to let him talk and be. And as he told me about his father, and I checked with the counselors and everything that was going on, I learned where he was at, what was really the problem there. I identified it personally, and I cannot really divulge that. But then I circled back around after telling him and sitting him down and saying, you know what? You burned this bridge. And the reason you burned this bridge is because some of the things you were doing. Because kids are about fashion. And so what I did was I wore some off-brand Jordans that were not really Jordans just to see what would happen. And they began to make pictures. They started social media sliding up on Snapchat and everything, TikTok. They were doing it all. They were doing it all. And I did a post check. I went back to my room, because you have to be willing to experience what everybody experiences. And I went back to my office and I sat and I did a post check. I said, how do I feel right now? Do I want to go home and change my shoes? If I'm being honest, yes. Am I happy in this space right now? No. Am I feeling depressed? I can feel it sliding in. Am I now worried about going back in the hallway? Yeah, I really am. Do I want to come back to school tomorrow? No. But the good news is I have money. I can go back to my closet. I can pull out my neighbor's stuff, and I'm back in the house.
I'm big.
But how I feel right now, I don't feel good. So sitting him down and letting him know, I watched you record me. I watched you pointing me behind my back. I watched all these things you were doing, and you were so disrespectful. You have no idea who I am. But you've allowed me to see who you are right now, and it's not really the best portrayal that you want for a person that's in my position where I can help you get over the hump.
Yeah.
And so after ignoring him for about a week or so, telling him don't ever talk to me in the hallway, because sometimes you just have to give them that raw side. I'm not fake. I'm a real person. If you're going to treat me like that, I don't want you coming up shaking my hand. because you're shaking my hand so somebody could record me while you made fun of my shoes and point. I was like, where are those? All that stuff. Okay, that's fine. You won, but now you're gonna take this L. So for a couple of days he tried, and I was like, no, man, don't talk to me. And all the other kids are coming, no, man, I'm cool. I'm off of you. And so then I went to his teacher, found out what was going on, how he was acting in the classroom. And then I came back around. I took him into the gym. We shot some shots. I beat him in basketball really good, really
Of
bad,
course.
just to show him, hey, this is what I do. And then I started telling him.
Did you have on your
now,
off-brand Jordans, or did you have on your regular tennis shoes?
No,
Your
I had on
regular
my good Jordans. I had on my whole Jordan outfit that day.
Let's be clear.
retros. And so then after I beat him in basketball, we sat down and had a conversation. I started telling him, I need you to go to class. One of my assistants went in, found out all of the missing assignments he had, and asked would the teacher allow for him to make them up. He gave him 1 day. The kid agrees, I'm going to make up the assignment. Now he's wearing his uniform. Now he's going to class on time every day. He's not wandering the halls. He's no longer bullying other students. He's actively involved in wrestling. The grade is up as of Friday. And the kicker is, this kid isn't even on my list. Sometimes you have to go outside of what you were assigned to do, because some of the hardest cases become the blueprint for what you do in the building. So I went on the outside to impact change for what I was going to do on the inside. So even those in the system that hadn't bought into what I was doing, because the principal has supreme authority, he allowed me in because he knows my past. He knows me. And so he's like, oh, Jeremy's coming. Whatever he wants to come here and do, let him do it. So now when the other co-workers feel uneasy about what's happening, he said, this is above their pay grade. You report only to me, and they report to me if they have a problem. If they bring me no questions, then you answer nothing.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that. I had that success story, and now it's a trickle effect. And then what I do is I take them to fun, engaging things. So we just took 45 kids to UE basketball game on last night. And
you told me about that last week, that you were going to take them to the, awesome. That was last night?
That was last night. And 9 of them are from my program, but the other 40-something were just basketball players that are in the building that are on the boys and girls team. They have 4 teams. And I just did that just because I want them to see what Dream Center is all about. And I want them to feel connected to me so I can speak into their lives. So now the teachers are watching this. All the kids, when I come in, are coming up, giving me high fives, asking me what they need me to do, what they want to do to make me happy in the classroom. So I can easily walk in the hall and say, I need you to keep it moving. I need you to be on time. I need you to go into the classroom. I need you to do your work. If I walk by that room and I see you standing, that's a problem. And so now those are the little victories. And then when we pull them to Dream Center, hearing the conversation where they're opening up and being vulnerable about what's going on in the household, and some of even the shameful things that they're faced with, and being able to say, I remember when I was there too. And maybe in some instances, it wasn't long ago. And so there's a young girl who's my assistant. She has a heart problem. And so at any given moment, she could have a spell. And so I start the lesson, and we do character building. And so while we're doing the character building, for this one, I believe we were dealing with prudence, wisdom, and how we apply it. And so I began to ask the kids what they thought about my assistant. They're, oh, she's always happy. She's always in a good mood. She's always laughing. And they were saying all these great things. And I said, what you don't know is that she has a critical heart condition, but she still smiles and laughs. And you would never know what's going on with her on the inside, with her heart, unless I told you. It's the same thing with you. There's something that's going on with you on the inside. There's something that's going on with your parents on the inside, and you have no idea because no one really stops to talk and ask. Or perhaps I haven't saw you in your episode, or I've seen your episode, but I don't understand why you have this episode. So wisdom says, let me get to know you. Let's open up the wounds and talk about them. So we're silent no more, because the enemy wins battles because we're quiet. What's not exposed can't be addressed. That's why he operates and masters the dark. But God brings light. And so bringing light to dark situations is how we win in the end. So I try to
Mhm.
always expose what's really going on with the individual and how they got there so we can build from ground up. And so those are some of the success stories that we have as far as some of the young men going to class, and then on the spiritual component where they're opening up and they're telling me the wounds that they have. And then when I begin to talk, much like you're doing, they just listen
Yeah.
because it's something that when you're feeding a person's spirit and their soul, they're
Mhm.
thirsty because all day long we feed the flesh from the music, from the TV, from walking around, from everything we're doing. So when someone is speaking to your spirit, man, you can't help but get strength from it. So you often get quiet because it's good food for my soul.
That's really good. I love the intentionality of, because I know you. I've been knowing you since you were a little fella. And let me tell y'all this, Jeremi likes to dress. So I'm sure he had to literally go to a Dollar General or someplace like that to find some shoes because he does not have anything like that in his closet. Okay. One thing that you can lean and depend on is the fact that Jeremy's going to leave nice. He's going to look nice and he's going to be nice. Okay.
There
You can
you go.
always lean and depend on that. So for him to put on some, what do they call them? The bunnies,
I
some
don't know
bunnies,
what drawers they were.
some off-brand Jordans, and wear those all. Were your feet hurting even?
No, they're right
They
size.
weren't.
No,
um to do that intentionality to see what his reaction is and then give him some of his own medicine, give him a dose of his own medicine.
yeah.
This is how you come across to people. I'm going to let you know that this is how you could be treated as well. But you, once you realize, okay, he's had enough, let me go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and nurture him.
Yes.
And that's what is so important. And I tell people all the time in the educational infrastructure that we have to have systems developed for students to feel safe. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, they want a safe adult and
Yes.
they want to be able to be themselves.
Yes.
And so you didn't humiliate him in front of all his friends. You know,
No.
you didn't go do all the things. You took him by himself
Mm-hmm.
into the gym. I'm sure he loves to play basketball. Now you let him
Mm-hmm.
know that you were the one that was in charge. You beat him a little bit. Let him know,
Yeah.
okay, you're a little fella. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm here for you.
Yes.
I'm here because I care about you. So now that we have this in common, let's have a real conversation.
Yes.
Let's really
Mm-hmm.
talk. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Now you have his ear, but you also have his heart. And because you
Yes.
had his heart, you can speak to his spirit, and then he can
Yes.
develop as a human being. So
There
there's
you
so
go.
many times that
Mm-hmm.
in the school system, sometimes teachers don't understand that those
Mm-hmm.
programs help, because if he was not at the basketball court with Jeremi
Yeah.
and missing 20 minutes of your class, this student
Mm-hmm.
could have been a hellion for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So pipe down, pumpkin.
Yeah.
Let the social and emotional work happen so they can
Yeah.
learn in your space, and be thankful that
Yes.
now they're learning in your space. And also
Mm-hmm.
give them grace. I love how you
Mm-hmm.
said, how much time will this student have to complete those missing assignments? Now, the teacher gave them one day,
Mm-hmm.
which clearly they're not doing standards-based grading, because you would have more than one day to get the work done, because you're proving what you know as far as the priority standards or the standards are concerned, learning
Yeah.
targets, the objective of what you're supposed to learn is concerned, instead of what they're doing in the class. But I
Yeah.
digress. I'm not the principal of that.
Come on, teacher.
But advocating for him to get the work done. So if these students who are at risk, these students who are come from trauma-rich environments, these students who come from
Mm-hmm.
poverty, who come from homes that don't have a mother and or a father there, show them some grace. And this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I always say: how would you feel if your boss or supervisor docked your pay every time he checked your phone? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Grades are students' paychecks. So they're there
Mm-hmm.
and they may laugh and he ha ha from time to time, whatever. But you can't dock them for doing what our society has
Yeah.
has cultivated our people
Mm-hmm.
to do. So just show them some grace. Like, you get paid whether you're doing your job and you're at 100% or not. Let the
Yeah.
students get paid for learning in your space, because that's your job to teach and it's their job to learn. But I digress.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to empowering Black males. So you told me, was it earlier this week or last week? I think it was earlier this week, that you have
Mm-hmm.
had the opportunity to speak to some government officials, to some folks from the police department on some injustices, and coming together as a unit to see how you can work together to build a safe system for Black men, Black boys, Black males to feel safe, and the police department to know how to coincide with that culture. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, let me start by saying I think we need to move past the excuse of absentee fathers, and we need to move more into a mentorship that has men that can develop boys to be men and teach them how to be a father. Because oftentimes the man that is doing the mentorship is a father in some role. And so when I was speaking to these police officers and these officials, this is what my response was, because now that doesn't mean that it wasn't true. But I also know if I'm coming into the room talking to this young man, I am a father who was fathered, who was taught how to be a man. So now that I've come in contact with him, I can now begin to develop him and show him how to be a man and to function like a man. But he has to be with me as a young man, and I have to be totally sold out. And so now working to, I guess, reconcile the relationship that's been so dysfunctional between police officers, and you have to have the right people. It has to be the right policemen. It has to be the right ones who actually care. And so when this officer came to me and we had a conversation, he was literally with all humility saying, I have a heart for this. I've done work in this environment for so many years, and I get tired of them calling the names of the individuals that don't police the area, all because they have prestige, and they want them to come to the county meetings. They want them to come into the churches and speak. And so as they're doing that, it really doesn't matter because this person's out of touch. And so as I heard his heart and how much work he did in the inner city community and some of the cases that he's been involved in, and even some of the things that we brushed shoulders while we were doing work, just not knowing because I was still new to the area, he became someone that I could lean on and work to begin to draw blueprints for what we want to do in the future, which I can't really unveil right now because, there's a lot of protocol. And again, this is why you need those people, because you understand why loose lips sink ships. Because if I say the wrong thing now, it could really dismantle everything. And Absolutely. But some of the pertinent information that he shared with me has now allowed for me to have a different perspective, even talking to some of the males in our area. Because I was sharing with him, I said, you guys will pull over so many people, and we feel like we're being profiled, even though I know everybody's profiled. That's just what we do. Everybody profiles everybody in whatever way. And he began to tell me, he said, what people don't realize is over the scanner, we can get a description. The description could be African-American male, Jordans. That's all we got. I wear Jordans. I'm an African-American male. How many kids have we purchased Jordans for? And now all these African-American males who are wearing Jordans with maybe a hoodie on, walking around, have to get pulled over in this 5-block radius because of the crime that was committed. And he said, I hate that we don't take the time as we find out who did it to let these individuals know that we let go. I'm sorry, this is the only description we had. I apologize. But because it's high crime areas and emergency, we have to let them go. We have to hurry over here because we don't know what's going to happen next. And he said the worst thing for us is that we deal with people in high crime, high intent, critical situations. So they're always on edge. And so we never see them in a safe space. So why would they have a healthy perspective of police officers when we never see them in a healthy state? And so now what we need to do is create safe spaces and healthy environments where we just come in and we're around them, we're amongst them, but it's not because they've done anything. It's simply because we want to live with them.
So I'm going to push back, especially being a boy mom and a
Go ahead, push.
principal of 93, 94% Black
Mhm.
young men. That sounds good. However.com. If I am reporting a crime,
Mhm.
me as a member of the Black community, knowing how police brutality is,
Mhm.
I would never say a Black man in Jordans, because I
Mhm.
know that there are probably 1,000 Black men within a 5-mile radius that have on Jordans. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
some of these descriptions are targeting, and sometimes they make those descriptions because they don't know for sure, but they know it was a Black man. So I'm going to say with Jordans and a hoodie, because they all wear that and they'll eventually find them. Shame on you for giving a description where you know that some people could be in harm's way and could potentially lose their lives. And while we're giving a description, I'm not giving a description like that. I'm sure you wouldn't either. But while
Mhm.
someone who does not look like us gives that description, they drive down the street to their nice home, to their nice area, and they don't have to worry about it. Where I, as a mother of 3 Black kings, have to be concerned that they have their hoodies on, that they're wearing a certain type of shoe, because they could be pulled over or stopped in the crowd because they look like a regular old Black man.
Yeah.
So we've got to educate.
Mhm.
In addition to that, I was at an ESEA conference. Shout out to them, because we were named a distinguished school at this conference. But ESEA, and there was a speaker, Robert Jackson. He was there, and I'm going to have him come speak to my staff next year. And he showed a YouTube video of a 12-year-old. They were all 12 years old. They were all from different nationalities, and they talked about their experience being discriminated against because
Mhm.
of their skin tone. And one thing
Mhm.
he said was, I think that people that look like me will stop getting killed if we didn't have officers in our space that were afraid of us. If they would just get people that lived in our neighborhood, then they would know better. I would
Mhm.
know, and I'd never be an officer, because I do appreciate the fact that they put themselves in harm's way to
Mhm.
keep the peace, to keep order. Um,
Mhm.
but we need to start to develop and even show our community that this is a reputable career and could potentially
Mhm.
save your
Yes.
community, because you're not afraid of your community. I'm not
Mhm.
scared to go into a certain part of town. Now, would I go at night with with a Gucci bag and
Mhm.
diamonds? I don't even have
Mhm.
diamonds, but no, I wouldn't do that, because I'm not silly. But I will go into the area and go to a lounge or go to a space that someone else may be afraid of, and they may be on the edge looking back and forth because they're not a part of the culture. And so
Mhm.
we've got to do some implicit bias training, explicit bias training. We've got to do some serious inclusion and diversity training. So when you get that description, you ask more questions. Ma'am,
Mhm.
now I understand you said Jordans and a Black man with the hoodie. What color was the hoodie?
Mhm.
Did he have anything else? Where was a tattoo? Because
Mhm.
I remember I was pulled over. It was right after Trayvon Martin was killed. My son, he was in the car. I was taking him to basketball practice. He was still in high school. And I was pulled over because my tags were almost expired. They were
Mhm.
not expired. They were almost expired.
Mhm.
I had a
Mhm.
whole panic attack. I almost
Mhm.
regurgitated. I told my son to get out of the car and walk to school. I was like, oh my God, what if he gets killed? Because I told him to get out of the car. I said, Julian, stay in the car. And so he got back in the car. Well, he wasn't completely out. He was almost out, but he closed the door. I was like, what if they think that he has a weapon? Then I started to dry heave. I panicked. This is what we have to deal with, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, princesses and peasants. That's why you can't just give those type of descriptions, because you have a mom with a
Mhm.
Black king sitting next to her that thinks he's going to get killed because her tags were almost expired, and he had, guess what he had on?
I'm sure you had them
Jordan
Jordans.
and a hoodie,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he was walking to practice. He was about to walk to practice. So we
Mhm.
can't do that. We cannot
Mhm.
do that. But I do appreciate that they're trying to gain some knowledge and get tap into someone from the community to get
Mhm.
some awareness. And if you need me to speak on behalf, I am a little passionate, because I know how I have PTSD. Anytime
Mhm.
someone from the Black community is killed at the hands of a police officer, I get sick. I can't watch any videos. I can't function. And I actually had to take a sick day around the Trayvon Martin thing. And I was pulled over right after that. So I have anxiety over things like that. So while you're making these descriptions, while you're making these blanket descriptions of someone who committed a crime, and then you go into your plush area, you can't do that, because we're real people. We're real people, and I know that we weren't going there with this.
Well, let me say this too,
Go
because
ahead.
something interesting happened today.
Uh-huh.
I saw some people from the church walking around the mall this morning, and when I first went in, I had on like a Timberland outfit, a Timberland shirt, Timberland sweatpants, and these black Crocs, because there was someone that passed away at the school, so they wanted to wear pink. So I was going there to purchase an outfit for school, and so I changed clothes. Now I'm getting Chick-fil-A. I'm checking out. They've done 2 laps and see me again. Now they stop me and they say, "Now didn't you just have on something else?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I had on this and I had on that." And he was like, "Well, I knew something because we talked about a tattoo earlier." They couldn't even remember my description. And so oftentimes there's a show called Brain Games, and I loved when I was a science teacher. I was teaching and showing this game to some of my students, and we watch information. But you find out that the average person only remembers maybe 25 to 30% of what they see. And we're talking about just normal interaction, not when a crime. And I'm not making a case for police officer description. I'm just saying there is a reality to sometimes we don't remember everything we just saw. And so you're right, there needs to be training because we don't have enough exposure and we don't do enough to work on our memory to strengthen it. We memorize the things we want to. And then when something happens traumatic or whatever the case may be, it may be hard to recall everything that went on. And so there is a level of not remembering because that's why when someone can ask the question of several witnesses, that's why it can be different accounts and they come together and say, okay, this account and this account matches up. Okay, they're saying some of the same things. And that's why they have the protocol they have. But it's not, that doesn't mean that they're doing everything right every time. Mm-hmm. That's why I led with you have to have the right person who has a heart.
Yeah.
Because when you have, we see a lot of the corruption because we live in a fallen state. So there's a lot of corruption. And so finding the ones that are not corrupt, finding the ones that really have a passion and care, those are the ones that are fit and they actually work hard to change their entire department that maybe they're over, but it's so much that they're up against. There's so many people that don't want to see it. I don't know if I watch Godfather of Harlem. Yeah. And there's this black officer who finally becomes the chief. And Bumpy goes to see him because he wants the doochie. That's the cocaine if you don't watch it. So he wants the doochie. That's how he makes his money. And so he goes to meet this police officer. And this police officer is acting high and mighty. He looks good in terms of the cameras. And his wife was like, "You got to go meet him, Bumpy. You got to go meet him." But his hands were already dirty and corrupt. Mm. And so Bumpy was holding that over his head. He was like, "Listen here. You can't do that to me because I'm trying to change the system, but I'm working within a flawed system." And he's like, "Well, if you're going to look out for black, since you're black, you got to do it." He gets to the point to where he realizes his hands are so dirty, his back is against the wall. He takes off his badge, puts it down and says, "I'm resigning today because I don't want anybody hanging anything over my head because I had to take this deal. That's the only way I got this seat. And they won't even allow me to do the work that I really want to do to change the system. And even you're at my door asking me to allow you to flood the streets with cocaine to kill our people."
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of variables in it. And that doesn't mean that everything's okay. It just means we have to be careful and we have to, like you said, come up with better ways to give descriptions that are more accurate and then give pushback where it needs to be pushback so that we're not targeting the wrong individuals or just calling it and falsifying information. That happens too. Yeah, not like people just don't pick up the phone, just do it because they're mad. Mm-hmm. Or I'll show them. And they call and they give a description to somebody that didn't even do anything. Yeah. And now there's a situation like I wasn't even there. Yeah. I mean, Central Park, what was it? Central Park 9? They weren't even there.
We're not even there.
And how much time they spend in prison? So there's a level of empowering African Americans and teaching them how to conduct themselves so it never can be that my name was mentioned. And that's what I'm really teaching these young men You can't do that because your name has already been mentioned for nothing.
For
Don't
nothing.
give them a reason. I'm
Don't.
not here because I've given people reason. I'm here because I know how to move within the system. I understand what's going on here,
Game. It's a game.
but I,
We have to play a game.
yeah,
That's what we need to be teaching our young people. There's
yeah,
a game.
we
How
teach
you
them the wrong
code
game.
switch. What'd you say?
We're teaching them the wrong game.
We're
We teach them how to
teaching them
run
the
games
wrong
on
game.
girls. We teach them how to run games to get over with the system as far as government assistance. We teach them all the wrong things. We're not teaching them the game of how to navigate being in rooms where it's intimidating and they actually may not want you there. But because of what you bring to the table and what you've mastered, like a Booker T, Washington, you need me. I didn't leave blueprints. It's all up here. You need to
It's
come back
all
to
up
me. You
here.
try to steal them.
It's
Now you
all
don't
up
even know
here.
how to build Washington, D.C. It's all here. Come on back. I'm waiting.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are out of time. I really do want you to come back potentially next week. But I
Okay.
really want you to come back because I want to talk about how to. This is going to be part one. Let's come up with a time next week because I want to talk about
Okay.
how to empower the Black males.
Yes.
So we can have some conversation before we come back next week and like get a couple things that we want to discuss. Maybe we can get a couple more people on here and really talk because I want our parents, I want our community members, community leaders, officers, doctors, attorneys, whoever is pouring into Black males to know how to do that, what they need. And you talked a little bit about it. You talked about the relationship building, being intentional about that, setting boundaries, setting expectations, letting them know that you are an advocate for them. So you're in their corner, but how to navigate through all of those things as we empower Black males. And I'm a woman, so I'll probably get like at least one other man to be a part of this conversation. Possibly two more men to be a part of this conversation because I really want our Black men to thrive. The system was built for the family to be broken, the Black man to be removed, the father to be removed, and for women to capitalize on this system that was built against us. That way we have masculine energy and we don't soften ourselves and allow our men to be men. This how the system was built like this on purpose from
Yeah.
400 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that,
William
not
Lynch.
masculine versus feminine energy, but how men, how boys, how Black males can navigate through the system that was built against them. How do we empower Black males? So, Jeremi, I appreciate you for being with us
Thank
today.
you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having
Absolutely.
me.
How can the people connect with you?
Well, you see my name right there, Jeremi Taylor. If you go to Facebook, you can just type in Jeremi Taylor. If you go to Instagram, you can type in Jeremi Taylor, and you can find me that way. If you need my email, I am Taylor Dream Center Evansville.org. So
All
Taylor
right.
at dreamcenterevansville.org. And you can email me if you maybe have a child in Evansville and you're wanting to have me spend some time with them or whatever the case may be. So.
All right. We literally have like 30 seconds. And instead of talking about my website, drmonicahunter.com, I'm going to talk about St. Stephen. If you're in Louisville, Kentucky, we're going to have Women on Wednesday starting March 1st. We have Dr. Nina Carpenter that's going to be with us. March 8th, Dr. Nina Carpenter is going to be back. March 15th, which is the day after my birthday, Reverend Erica Whitaker. March 22nd, Sounds of Libby Clark Ray. And March 29th, panel with a few folks, few powerful women from our area. We're going to meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. at St. Stephen Church to celebrate Women History Month. So make sure women who are listening in the Kentucky area, make your way to the Louisville campus of St. Stephen, and I promise you're going to have a mighty, mighty good time. If you are not in the Louisville, Kentucky area, you can tune in to St. Stephen. Let me make sure I get it right. Let me SSCLIVE.TV. You can also look us up on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, St. Stephen Church. I'm Dr. Monica with Silent No More radio show and podcast. I'm your host, and I'm so thankful that you were able to be with us today. If you want to buy my book, Daughter in the Shadows, go to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com and pick up a copy of your book, Daughter in the Shadows. It will bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Love each other and go be great.